Students, continuing with the discussion on compaction of soils. Regarding the third factor, effect of soil type, we have discussed how the shape of the curve is going to change with the type of soil. Now I want to discuss something more with this. Is the shape of the curve going to be a typical inverted V shape for all the soils? Now we have seen how the shape varies. Will you have similar V shape, okay, with a change in the type of soil? Let us try to discuss about sands, okay, sandy soils, okay, which, for example, a beach sand. Now, if you try to look into the how sand will look, okay, with the compaction curve for a sand. Now we will try to if you try to plot the variation of the density of now we will get points like this. Now this is the typical plot for a sand, the variation of density with water content. Now this is a condition where it is for a partly saturated condition, or it is it's a partly saturated condition. Or it may be even also dry. Now this is the condition when it is completely saturated. Why we have such a inverted shape curve for sand? Now as the moisture content increases, now what happens in the partly saturated condition, between the particles we will have a thin layer of thin film of water, and this leads to surface tension. Because of the surface tension which comes into play between two dissimilar molecules, one is the sand particles, another is the water molecules. Now because of that we have the surface tension, and that prevents the particles to come close to each other when you are trying to compact. Therefore we need to understand that because this surface tension is playing a role here. Now you would have done the test, okay, bulking of sand. There is a bulking of the sand and it is leading to a reduced amount of quantity of soil sand particles inside the known volume of the compaction mode. Now as the water content is further increased, what happens? It slowly picks up and comes to another maximum. Therefore you got two maximums. You got for a partly saturated condition and for a fully saturated condition you got the peak, and for a saturated condition it is slightly more than for a partly saturated condition or a dry condition. This is because as the water content increases, the surface tension which is created, that is broken and it becomes completely submerged. Therefore you get a peak. Now we have to understand that this is a very important aspect coming to the practical compaction. Whenever you are trying to do the compaction of sandy soils, especially in ground development techniques, we are going to discuss in more detail. We are going to use vibration techniques for compacting sand, and you are going to either do it in a dry condition or in a fully saturated condition. You got a vibro flotation method where you try to use a vibro probe, and you are going to have a jet of water which is going to enter and you are going to vibrate it, and this is going to lead to the compaction of sandy soils. In the previous portion we already discussed how the shape of the curve is going to be there as we have different types of soils. More amount of clay material is there, you are going to have a flat shape of the compaction curve compared to a soil which is well graded with a little amount of clay. You can have a very sharp curve like this. As the clay content increases, it becomes more flat. This is a very important aspect that we need to understand when you try to draw the compaction curves based on the soil type. Now we'll go to the next aspect. Students, I had discussed how the soil structure is going to affect the compaction process when the water content increases. Now let us try to see what is the effect of soil structure. Effect of soil structure on the engineering properties of compacted soils. Now let us try to see. You already observed that as the water content is increasing, we have a typical inverted V-shaped curve, and as the change in compactive energy is going to shift the curve vertically up and to the left. Now let us try to take let us take this as A, this as B, and this as C. Now the same density, one on the dry side of optimum, another on the wet side of optimum, and one exactly at the optimum moisture content. This is OMC, and this is gamma D maximum. This is also gamma D maximum peak value. Now what is the, when you try to analyze the microstructure of the soil at this position, when it is having a lesser water content into the dry side of this thing, now we'll have more flocks in the soil structure. Now because of this, this is more flocculated, relatively more flocculated, and as a consequence we will have very less density. As the water content increases, when it goes to this, okay, if I try to see what is the condition of the soil, I am just trying to see the micro level, we will have a dispersed structure. This is dispersed. Now if you look into this point C, now it will be more dispersed, relatively more dispersed. Means almost parallel arrangement. Therefore, the soil structure is going to change as the water content is changing in the compaction process. Now, if you try to see, this is for a light compaction. Now, what is going to happen when you try to increase the compactive energy, heavy compaction or modified Proctor test? Now, if I try to take the points, the similar points, okay, and the now let me say take the same point. This is D, and let me see what is let me call it as E. Now, here you will have relatively the flocks are slightly reduced. Still, you may have flocks, but the flocks are comparatively less compared to this. This becomes less flocculated. And here it is. Now the difference between C and D will be not much because this is already in a dispersed condition, therefore it will be almost similar to this. But because of the increased compactive energy, slight increase in the density can be observed. Now when you compare to this, okay, this are the OMC at the optimum moisture content, okay, you will have more, compared to this, you will have more, relatively more dispersed structure, therefore you are going to have an increased, therefore it is going to shift to the left. You can see the optimum moisture content is less and the maximum dry density is more. Therefore, at a lesser optimum moisture content, you can achieve a higher density because of the changing soil structure. This is the very important aspect, though it's not part of the syllabus, but you need to understand this. For the syllabus, what is being framed, this particular section is not being listed. Now, second, we will try to see what is going to happen to the permeability, because we have got engineering properties, permeability or hydraulic conductivity. Now if I try to take, let us say I am taking a light compaction, now what happens to the shape of the variation of the hydraulic conductivity, or the coefficient of hydraulic conductivity K, it goes on decreasing, and reaches the lowest value slightly to the wet side of optimum, then slightly increases. Okay, this is how the compaction, the permeability varies with the. Now we have got the lowest value of the hydraulic conductivity is slightly to the right of the OMC. Therefore, this is the variation of the hydraulic conductivity goes on decreasing, because you got more flocculated structure, more flocks, you got interconnectivity voids is very clear, therefore the water percolates and you got a higher hydraulic conductivity. As the water content decreases and the compaction is going to change the soil structure, once you come to the dispersed condition, therefore the water has got less voids to seep through, therefore your hydraulic conductivity is less, and slightly beyond the optimum will have the lowest value of the hydraulic conductivity. The difference is not much compared to the OMC, and further there is a slight increase, because this increase in the hydraulic conductivity is because there is a reduced density, therefore you got more water seeping through, therefore the hydraulic conductivity increases. This is the variation of the permeability. Now let us see what is the construction overwater pressures. This is a very important aspect, friends. I'll tell you, most of the failures in the earthen dams during the construction stage is because of this construction overwater pressure. Now if you try to take on the dry side of optimum, what happens? You will have more flocculated structure, therefore you will have dry side will have negative pore water pressures. In fact, you will have negative pore water pressures, whereas in the wet side, because of the more water being present, you will have positive pore water pressures, and it leads to, now whenever you are compacting, this pore water pressure is very important. Now you have got another aspect, that when you are trying to compact an embankment, when you are trying to prepare or construct an embankment, now I am going to compact it in layers. Now earlier in the beginning of the 20th century, there was no idea how to compact it, because they used to compact it in layers, and they wanted to hasten the work, and some of the project they tried to have many layers in a particular day, and there were failures of the dam in the construction stage itself. They didn't realize why did they fail. Now you have to understand, students, when you are constructing, mason is constructing a masonry wall, he will construct 7 or 8 courses in a day, not more than that. What happens, because it doesn't have the green strength, it will fall. Similarly, what happens here in the construction of a dam, each layer, when it is compacted, you are trying to induce some stress. Because of the stress, what happens, the pore water pressures are created. Usually we try to keep slightly wet of optimum when we are compacting, because it becomes easy for compacting. Then what happens, the positive pore water pressures are going to, now they want to, the pore water pressure which are created wants to dissipate. Now it tries to squeeze out, then it leads to the failure of the dam. Then later they understood how to overcome this kind of problems. Now let us try to see what happens to the stress strain characteristics. Stress strain characteristics of stress strain behavior. Now, if I try to take a sample, I have compacted slightly dry of optimum, and I try to see how it looks, and if it is wet of optimum. A sample which is dry of optimum, it gives The stress strain curves are like this, sigma A versus epsilon A, and a vector of optimum will have a curve like this. This is the dry side, sample compacted to the dry side, and this is on the wet side. Now we can observe here the strength of the sample which is compacted slightly to the dry side of the optimum. It may be somewhere here, to the left of the optimum. Then it is going to have more strength because the flocks are going to lead to flocculent structure is going to give you more strength, and it is going to have a brittle behavior. Whereas soil compacted to the wet side of the optimum, and if you try to do this analysis of the stress strain characteristics, you get a curve like this, which has got a ductile behavior, and the strength is less. Therefore, this is the stress strain characteristics. Now we'll go to the fourth aspect, that is the shrinkage and swelling. Fifth one is swelling. Now which side of the, now let us try to take a sample which is slightly compacted by dry side of optimum. What happens, it will have more thirst of water, okay? Because you will have some voids and the flocculent structure, you will have more thirst for water, therefore swelling will be more in this case, okay? This is dry side, swelling is more. And wet side, swelling is less. Now in the similar thing, then the shrinkage, the dry side shrinkage will be less, and wet side shrinkage will be more. What is the reason for this? We need to probe into the reason. Now let us see the shrinkage by phenomena. See, the shrinkage is nothing but the particles are coming close to each other. If you have got a flocculent structure, because in a dry side of optimum, slightly dry of optimum, you have got a still flocculent structure. Then when the particles come close to each other, because of the flux, what happens, the edge to face arrangement is trying to prevent the soil sample to shrink. Therefore, the water evaporates and it will have a more compact structure. When it comes to the wet side of optimum, what happens, the shrinkage is more because it has got more dispersed structure, more parallel element. Okay, you take, say, for example, you got black aerosols. The shrink element is very, very less because it shrinks to a very low water content because of the more dispersed structure. Whereas you got kyletic soils, the red earths, okay, you have a higher shrinkage limit because it has got flocculent structure. Therefore, we can understand this behavior based on the soil structure. Now coming to the swelling, dry side, it has got more swelling because it has got more flux, and it has got thirst because it has not been completely saturated. It needs more water for swelling, therefore it swells more. Whereas the wet side, okay, you got more sufficient water, it has already filled with water in the voids, and you got dispersed structure is more close to each other, therefore the swelling is less. Now coming to the next aspect, we have the compressibility behavior. Last one is the compressibility behavior. Now the dry side of optimum, you will have something curved like this, and the wet side of optimum will have a curve like this. This is the dry side. This is the void ratio versus the vertical pressure, effective pressure. This is the wet side. Because in the dry side of optimum, slightly dry of the optimum, what happens? You have more flocks. Because the flocks, okay, what happens? The flocculent structure, when the load is applied, it tries to prevent the compression of the soil. Therefore, you will have more load resistance. Therefore, the void ratio reduction is less. And as the stress increases, slowly the compression increases. At a very high stress, both come and meet asymptotically. Now, in a wet side of optimum, because the structure is dispersed, okay, you will have more compressibility. It starts compressing, and at higher stress, okay, they come and meet. Okay. Therefore, the compressibility behavior is as shown in this figure. Now, we have discussed all the important engineering properties. We have seen swelling, shrinkage, permeability. and compressibility and also the stress strain behavior. Students, will go to the next aspect which is very important. Now the field compaction control. In the field compaction and field compaction control. In the field compaction, we need to compact the soil. How to compact the soil? We need to choose the different type of rollers. Now the type of roller that is to be chosen depends upon the type of soil. Now we have got different types of rollers depending upon the soil. Therefore we have got steel type rollers. These are the compaction equipment. Equipment is singular as well as plural. We don't have equipments, that is equipment. We got steel triad rollers. Steel triad rollers, first one. Second one is pneumatic triad rollers. Third one is we got the sheep foot rollers. Fourth one you got vibrated type rollers. We got the grid rollers. And then impact type roller, impact type compaction, impact type compactors are there. Compactors. Then you got vibrative type. The vibrated type you got for narrow areas you got plate compactors. Got vibrated rollers. Now let us see why we have got different types of rollers. Now it's quite obvious because we got different types of soils. Okay, now this type of rollers you would have seen when the roads are formed, especially the pavements. Okay, you will see these steel type rollers. In that also we have got different weights of the rollers. We have got 5-ton rollers, 10-ton rollers, 20-ton rollers. Now these steel type rollers are useful for all types of soils. Most of the all types, especially the granular types. Okay, now pneumatic type rollers are used for basically for sandy types of soil, sandy type of soils. Then you got silty clays, silty soils. Sheep foot roller particularly is meant for clay soils. Clay soils. In all types, okay, we can use even for granular material. We got gravel, we got sand, all those things. This grid roller specifically for crushing these. See, you got gravity type or rock fragments. When you want to more rock fragments are there, then you can use grid rollers. Then impacted compactors, this is a variation. Okay, we try to impact. These are all you are trying to roll. Okay, these are all rollers. This is impacted compactor where you are going to do the compaction. The vibrated type of rollers, this is especially for sandy type of soils. Sands, okay. Granular materials, you can use the vibrated technique because when you vibrate, okay, you can achieve a denser state. Now, these plate compactors especially are used for narrow areas. For example, behind the retaining wall, you want to have the backfill in narrow areas, or you have taken a trench and you want to compact back this oil, okay, then you are going to use the for narrow areas. This is for narrow areas. Now this is about the different types of compaction equipment. Next aspect is about when you are doing the field compaction, you need to check whether the required amount of compaction has been done. Now for this, there will be a contractual agreement, there will be the type of roller will be decided. Then the lift thickness. The lift thickness is the thickness of the soil which is compacted in each layer. Usually this is taken as 20 to 25 centimeter, not more than that, around 20 centimeter. Then third one is the number of passes. For each lift thickness, what is the number of passes? These are very important. Now this type of roller selection depends upon the soil type, based on the soil type. Okay, you are going to decide what is the type of roller. Now we will discuss more about the different types of compaction equipments and more details about the field compaction control. There is one term called the relative compaction. The relative compaction is an important term. RC is nothing but the density achieved in the field to what is the density, maximum density. This is the maximum density achieved in the density maximum in the laboratory. This is the relative compaction. Usually we try to maintain a relative compaction of 90% and above, greater than 90%. For air-filled payments we need to have a very stringent thing. Air-filled payments, we expect a relative compaction of greater than 98%. Therefore, we expect a very good compaction of the air-filled payment. We will discuss more details about the different types of compaction equipment, more details about the tire pressure, what is the what you can say the area covered, what are the typical soil pressures, that is the tire pressures which is there, which is going to affect the compaction, and we will try to further discuss about the field compaction. Means when you are compacting, you have to find out whether you achieve the required density and the moisture content, so that you have a control over the compaction process. Okay, we will try to come back after a short break. Students, we will discuss about the different types of compaction equipment. This is the field compaction equipment. Now we discussed about the steel tire rollers and the pneumatic tire rollers. Now let us see what are the tire pressures that usually. Typical tire pressures will be around 250 kPa for light thing. Now if you have got a heavy compaction equipment, the tire pressures can go from 400 to 1050 or 1100 for heavy rollers. I already told you we have got 5-ton roller, 10-ton roller, then 20-ton rollers, different types of rollers are there. Therefore, you can expect that the tire pressures are going to be different. Now, I also discussed about the sheep foot roller. What do you mean by sheep foot? Sheep foot roller. Now, it will have a drum and we will have some projections. Okay, we will have projections like this and projection like this guy. These projections will have dimensions ranging from 150 to 250 mm projections, and the area will be, projected area of these projections will be in the range I think 100 to 150 centimeter square. Now what happens when this type of throughout the drum will have this. Now how did this concept come? Now earlier days when the compaction is to be done, they used to allow the sheep to, the flock of sheep to come into the area which is to be compacted. They used to stamp there, and when they walk, when they are walking, they are trying to create an impression and they are going to compress the soil. Okay. Therefore, in clay soils, it is very difficult to roll it. Therefore, we try to use sheep foot roller for compacting. Therefore, this is called a similar to a sheep foot. Okay, because it was called projections, it is called sheep foot roller. Now, when I use a steel tire roller or I use a pneumatic tire rollers, the area covered. See, for example, see if I look in plan, I will have in the front axle I will have two wheels. Okay, this is the front axle. Then in the rear portion, what happens? This is the body of the vehicle. This is connected somewhere, and the rear portion will have wheels. Okay, and the rear portion will have wheels. This is something like this. Okay. The rear portion you got wheels and the front wheels. Now this is the rear axle, rear portion and front portion, front axle. Now this will be arranged such that this is going to take care of the portion where the rear axle is not going to cover. When it rolls over a particular portion, 80% of the area is covered. 80% of the compaction area is covered. Whereas in the case of this sheepfoot roller, it is only around 8% of the area is covered. But because of the rolling action, what happens? Okay, you are going to have a pock mark and it is going to get compacted. Later, after compacting using the sheepfoot roller for a clay soil, especially for a clay soil, then we are going to use a steel tread roller or a pneumatic tread roller. Usually we prefer a pneumatic tread roller. Then we are going to finally run it around so that we get the final compaction. Therefore, first we do for a clay soil with a sheepfoot roller. The area covered is very less because we have got so much of gap between the projections. Therefore, the area covered will be very less. These are the important aspects which you need to understand. Now, based on this only, we are going to decide upon how many number of rolls are to be compacted for each layer or unit thickness. Now, coming to the pressures, when you use a pneumatic tread roller, for a pneumatic tread roller or a steel tread roller, the pressures are on the range of 1000, okay, something 1000 kPa. For light rollers, it is around 250 kPa. Now, when I try to see, this is for a pneumatic tread rollers. Now, when you come to the pressures for the sheepfoot roller, it's very, very high. The reason for this is the area which is projecting inside the soil or compacting the soil is very less, therefore the area being less, the same force is applied, therefore the stress is going to be very, very high. And these are the aspects which you need to know, because once you students, some of you may take up a career in construction line, therefore you need to have, because compaction is one of the important aspects in the practical line. Now let us come to the next, the field compaction. Now let us say the contractor is doing 8 number of rolls, okay, as per the contractual agreement. Now after he compacts one lift thickness, there will be a representative from the client side. There will be an engineer, for example, you are working for the client side. Now as the engineer, it is your role to check whether the required density, there will be a specification. Now this amount of field compaction has to be done. Okay, now my density to be achieved should be say 1.9 gram per cc and or 1.95 gram per cc, the dry density maximum, and OMC should be around say 14.5%. This is only arbitrary value returning. Now when I compact this one layer, now you need to find out what is the density achieved. Therefore what I do, I usually I drive a core, I use a core cutter, you already studied in your laboratory. Try to drive a core, okay, when you drive a core, okay, you will get this soil sample. Okay, it may not be for the complete depth, okay, it may be for only small depth. Now you remove the core and you try to see what is the mass occupied, you can find out the density. Now we can use the calcium carbide method as a quick method to determine the water content. What is the field water content? Thereby I get my density, I get my what is the water content that is achieved. Now we can compare with what is the water content achieved with what is required. Therefore it has to be compared. Now if it is not achieved, then we need to ask the contractor to do number of rolls. Okay, that is the second aspect. Now a simpler method, this is a destructive method of getting the sample and trying to find out the, there are other non-destructive methods. Now we have got simple method called the Proctor's needle. Proctor also came out with a simple method of determining this. Now we have got a Proctor needle like this. This is the Proctor's needle. Now we have got a needle at the bottom. You will have a needle shank. This needle tip can be removable. You can have a varying needle tip. This shank is penetrated at a depth of at a rate of 1.25 centimeter per second for a penetration of 7.5 centimeter. Now how to determine this? Okay, now what you do when you do the laboratory test, when you do a laboratory test, for each laboratory test, okay, you will be getting the compacted specimen. For the compacted specimen, what you do, you try to penetrate using this needle. You know the dimension. The area will vary based on the needle tip. The area can vary from 0.32 to 6.45 centimeter square. We can use different types of needle based on the soil type. Then we can also, after each trial, when you get this point, now what you are going to do in the same compacted sample in the laboratory. This is the compacted specimen. Now you remove the collar, you will have the soil sample. You try to penetrate this needle, okay, using this Proctor needle. You penetrate and you find out what is the resistance. When you try to penetrate, you have got the graduated rings. Okay, this ring will slide and you know what is the graduated graduations. Okay, you can find out how much penetration has taken place. Now, to penetrate 7.5 centimeter, we need 6 seconds. In 6 seconds at this rate, you are going to penetrate inside. Then you are going to note down what is the number of graduations. Now, at lower water content, penetration resistance. Now, I am going to plot a graph of penetration resistance. Along with this, for this corresponding, I have got a point. Now corresponding to the second point, I get another point. Now this is the way how I am going to get generate my corresponding to this. As the water content increases, what happens here? You get a penetration curve. This is called the penetration curve. Now to understand how the Proctor needle is used, first in the laboratory what we do is when we do the compaction test, we try to generate this compaction curve. Now this is the rho d versus Mercer. Now for the first trial I get this point. Now when I get this point, how I am going to get? Okay, I am going to do a compaction test. Okay, this is a line diagram of a compaction thing. I remove the collar and this is the soil sample which is there in the compaction mold. What I do is, before I remove this base plate, what I do, I take this Propus needle and I penetrate here. When I penetrate here, for this particular moisture content, I get what is my penetration resistance. Then what I can do, on the same graph I can plot, I can take another scale of penetration resistance. This is penetration resistance on the y-axis. On the y-axis here. Now for the first trial, I get my penetration resistance. So this is the penetration resistance for the corresponding water content. Now I continue the similar process of doing the compaction and getting my second trial. I get for the second trial what is my penetration resistance. Corresponding to the third point, okay, as the water content increases, what happens? The density is increasing. Here the ease with which you can penetrate this needle into the soil is increasing. Therefore, I get my, corresponding to the fourth point, I get my penetration resistance. Therefore, I develop a penetration resistance curve corresponding to this point. Now, this is the penetration resistance curve. You can also call it as penetration resistance curve or the resistance curve. Now, using this curve, okay, I can do the field compaction control. In the field, when I am trying to compact one layer, okay, now I can use a similar needle and I can try to penetrate it. When I penetrate, okay, I know the sliding ring is sliding, and I know what is the amount of graduations. Now I can know my penetration resistance. Let us say the penetration resistance in the field. So this is the OMC. Now I need to know whether I am very near to OMC, on the wet side of the OMC or dry side. Okay, this is the dry side. This is the wet side. Now I need to know whether I am too far away from the OMC or very near to the OMC, either on the dry side or the wet side. What I am going to do? I am going to take this penetration resistance. This is the field value. Now I am going to draw a horizontal line. Wherever it cuts the curve, corresponding to that, okay, I know this is the water content. This is the field water content, and this is the corresponding density. Now I get my density. Or I can go to the, now this, I go up, I know this is my moisture content and this is the field density, dry density in the field, and this is the moisture content, this is the field moisture content. Therefore, for the field condition for the so many number of passes, now I know I am trying, my water content achieved is slightly dry of optimum. And there is a tolerance limit. Okay, now corresponding to the optimum, it is very, very difficult to get exactly the optimum content in the field. We have a tolerance limit. We will have, this is the tolerance. Now, what is this range that is allowed is plus or minus, so maybe 1% moisture content or maybe 0.5%. This is the tolerance value that will be already prescribed in the contract. Accordingly, we can check, okay, now if it is too far away, then what I can do, I can add some more water and try to roll it. Then I can again check it. Okay, therefore, the amount of destruction that is going to take place in the field compacted soil is very less. This is the second method of doing it. First method is to drive a core and try to remove it. If you are not able to drive a core, then you go do by sand replacement method, which you are going to discuss in the laboratory sessions. Already you would have done that in your laboratory. Some labs, okay, the sessions were delayed. Those students who are not done, they will be doing that particular lab session, and when you do, you will be knowing what is meant by core cutter method and sand replacement method. Now, we have got the third non-destructive method. Whenever I do it, okay, I use a nuclear density meter. The nuclear density meter is a very costly equipment, but very precise. I use a nuclear density meter. I just bring that equipment, it's a handheld equipment, okay, it will have some handle and will have some meter. When I press it, okay, you will send some radioactive waves, and once you send that radioactive waves, okay, it has been calibrated, you get your readings directly, you get a digital information, you get your moisture content and your density very easily. But for using this equipment, first thing is it is cost, second thing is the expertise. If you don't have a person who can handle it properly, it is going to be very disastrous, because it is going to have a detrimental effect on the health of the person. Therefore, you need to use it very caution. Okay, in India, we don't have many companies who are using this. Okay, it's a very, very costly equipment. Okay, it's a dead investment. We go by the simple, either by Proctor's needle or by using core cutter method. This is about the fuel compaction control. Now coming to the next aspect, which is very important, is called the specifications. The specifications, compaction specifications, we have got the end product specification. There are two specifications: end product specification and you got the method specification. Method specification. Now, what do you mean by end product specification? As the name itself indicates, end product. What is my end product? In compaction means it is only the compaction achieved. Okay, whether it is the density or the moisture content. Therefore, I am going to give an end product. Okay, I need, see, the contractor is going to be told, okay, in the contractual agreement, now I need to achieve, okay, I need to achieve this amount of compaction. Therefore, I need my OMC to be so much, the tolerance is so much, okay, plus minus 1% or 0.5%, and my density should be so much. Now, accordingly, the contractor will be given, okay, you have to do the way you want, but I want this end product. Now, the contractor will either do 8 number of rolls or 10 number of rolls, whatever it is, okay, it is the contractor's obligation to reach that amount of compaction. Now, there is a catch here. Now what happens, okay, the contractor may achieve a density very close to that, okay, you may have tolerance. Now already you have seen, being dry side of optimum or being wet side of optimum is going to affect your engineering properties. Therefore, when you got specific, for example, you are trying to compact a clay liner for waste impoundment. Therefore, being on the dry side is going to lead to a lot of swelling. Being on the wet side, you are going to have more amount of shrinkage. Therefore, the shrinkage cracks are going to be of concern. Therefore, you got different problems with respect to the being on the wet side or the dry side. Therefore, you need to be seeing this aspect, and you should tell the contractor. Additional clause should be there that you should also see that you are always on the dry side of optimum or always on the wet side of optimum, depending upon what is your requirement. Therefore, this is the end product. The engineer is safe, the client is safe, the contractor is very, very taxed. Okay, you need to be very careful. If the workmanship is not proper, 8 number of rolls as per the thing, it is not compacted properly, then he has to go for another 1 number of pass or 2 number of passes. Therefore, he has to pay from his pocket and have more number of passes. When it comes to the method specification, method will be specified, including, say, not only the method, the type of roller. The type of roller will be the weight of the roller, then number of passes, the lift thickness, everything will be specified here. Now the contractor is free. It is not his botheration. According to the client's requirement, he is going to bring the requisite type of roller, the weight of the roller, then the number of passes is going to do, 8 number of passes has to be done. He will do 8 number of passes, then the lift thickness, he will maintain the 20 centimeter lift thickness as per the contractor agreement. Now, finally, when the client side, okay, one engineer is going to check whether the required density from his requirement is done or not done. If the density or the moisture content has not been achieved, then they have to tell the contractor to do it further, but the contractor has to be paid an additional amount. It's very, very essential. The contractor is not going to have any obligation to do extra, therefore he is going to be paid. Now, for using this method specification, it's very, very essential that you should do trial runs and first decide, okay, if I use a 10-ton roller, is it going to have sufficient? If I use a left thickness of 20 centimeter and I have 8 number of passes or 9 number of passes or 10 number of passes, therefore accordingly I need to fix my contractor. Therefore, you need to have a proper trial run for this. In addition to that, you are also going to have a specification on the maximum size of the soil particle. This is also going to be specified because this is going to affect your soil compaction. Therefore, the method specification is useful when you have got large size projects, otherwise it's a difficult thing. Now we need to work out a numerical example. Let us take up a numerical example. Students, the examination you will be given information about the. Let us take that problem. Now, typical example, okay, the data will be something like this. The water content has been given. In percentage. Then the weight of wet sample, either the density will be given or weight is given. Usually when it is a light compaction, in this problem it is mentioned that it is a standard Proctor test, Indian standard light compaction. Therefore the volume is known, okay, it will be 1000 cc. The data is like this, the water content. Five, 2.05, 15.18.2, 18.2, 2.03. Then the final water content is 1.98. Now we can observe here, as the water content is increasing, the density is increasing. After reaching a peak value, it has again decreased. Now this is the weight of the sample. The light compaction test has been done. Then for this light compaction, the volume of the mold is equal to 1000 cc. Now what I can do is, I need to calculate the density. Now to calculate the density, the weight is given. Now density is equal to, now first let us find out the bulk density is equal to mass by volume. To know what is the mass, okay, I got in kg. Let me convert into 1000. When mass is, let us say for the first trial, let me take the trial 1. The mass is 1.8 kg, okay, divided by volume is 1000 cc. I will multiply by 1000. If it gets cancelled, I am converting into so much, 1.8 gram per cc. Therefore, I can, in this case, it's a straightforward thing. Therefore, my bulk density, rho B. Now we need to be careful about the units. It's very essential, because you will go wrong if you don't use the proper units. This becomes 1.8, 1.94 without much change, because you multiply by 1000 and dividing by 1000, okay, same units, same numerical value. You get your bulk density, then you find out your dry density. Once you get your bulk density, finding out dry density is very easy. Now for trial 1, I'll just show you. Trial 1, the dry density is equal to bulk density by 1 plus W. I got my water content. The water content is 8.5. The bulk density is 1.8 divided by 1 plus W is 8.5. 8.5 divided by 100. Because when I was told you students, whenever you are substituting water content in the numericals, you have to convert into decimals. Therefore, it is 1.8 divided by 1 plus 0.085. Therefore, you get your density in gram per cc. You enter all these values. Now when I calculate, my calculations come out like this. The density has come out 1.66 1.73, 1.76, 1.78, 1.72, 1.65. Students, I usually prefer students to work out in dry unit weights. Therefore, I can convert into dry unit weight. Dry unit weight is equal to gamma D is equal to, where gamma D is equal to rho D into G, rho D into 9.81. If I multiply by 8.81, 9.81, I get my dry unit weight in SI units. Now, who can get these values? I have got 6. Seven. Now, students, in the problem is also asked you to calculate it has asked you to plot the ZAV line. Now, along with the compaction curve, we need to also have the ZAV line, which is a companion curve. Therefore, I need to calculate my dry unit weight for ZAV line. Therefore, this is gamma D ZAV. You can write like this in kilonewton per meter cube. Unit will be same kilonewton per meter cube. Yesterday I told you how to calculate this density. How to calculate the density? Your gamma D is equal to Gs into gamma W by 1 plus E. Now, if I replace E by 1 plus Wg by Sr for ZAV line, means it is 100% saturation line, Sr equal to 1. Therefore, I get my gamma D is equal to Gs gamma W by 1 plus W equal to Gs. The specific gravity in this problem has been given as 2.7. That is all you to take. Gs is equal to the specific gravity of solid side itself 2.7. Now, for each trial of this water content, you need to substitute the value of water content. Gs is known, gamma W is 9.81. I can find out what is this gap. Now, this is a simple calculation, one can do it. Now, I will tabulate those values. What I got. The values for the ZAV line comes out to 21.54, 19.92, 18.85, this 21.1, 19.92, 18.32, so 19.32, 18.85, then 17.75 and 17.14. Now, students, you need to plot this graph. Now, look here, you are going to plot this one versus water content, sorry, not this dry density, dry unit weight, and this one versus water content. Therefore, you have to choose a proper scale. Now, to choose a proper scale, see the maximum thing. You got 21.54. What is the least value? The least value is 16. Therefore, on the y-axis, now you got a plot of, what is the plot? On y-axis it is the dry unit weight, and on the y-axis it's moisture content. Therefore, you got dissimilar properties, therefore dissimilar parameters. Therefore, you can choose a suitable scale, different scale on both x-axis and y-axis. Now, on the x-axis, the water content starts somewhere from 8.5, it goes to 20.2. Therefore, I can take 8 to 21 on the x-axis. On the y-axis, What is the value? I got 21.54. Therefore, on the y-axis, I can take 22 as the maximum to a lower value of 16. Therefore, I can choose this for the y-axis, and x-axis it is 21% maximum. Sorry, 8 to 21 percentage. Therefore, this is on the upper end. Okay, this is at the lower end. Let us try to take this scale and try to plot a graph. Usually, it's advisable to use your graph sheet in the landscape form, portrait form, not landscape form, the portrait form. Now keep your, if this is the graph sheet, okay, you keep it in a landscape form. Y-axis you have more space so that you have your graph coming out properly. Now let us say this is the y-axis and this is the x-axis. This is 8%. I have to go to therefore 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. Therefore this is 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 and 22. Now let me make space for this. This is moisture content. On the y-axis it is 16%, starting from 16 to 22, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. This is gamma D, this is in kilonewton per meter cube. Now let me plot the values. Corresponding to 8.5, the first this thing 8.5, this is 9, 8.5. The value of density is 16.28, 16.28, 18.5, 16.28, 16.3. Then corresponding next water content 12.2. Corresponding to 12.2, it is 16.97, almost 17. Then third one 13.75, 13.75, you have 17.27, 17.3. Then 15.5, 15.5 you got 17.41. Then corresponding to 18.2, you got 16.87, 17. Then corresponding to the last one, it is 20.2, 20.2 you get 16.19, 16.2. Okay, this is the compaction curve. Approximately, this is the compaction curve. Now I need to plot my ZAV line. Now corresponding to this first water content, this ZAV line value is 20.58. No, 21.54, 21.54, it's somewhere here. Let me use a different symbol, let me use, then corresponding to the second trial, it is 19.92, 19.92, this comes to almost 20. Then corresponding to the third one, it is 19.32, 19.32. Corresponding to the fourth one, you got 18.85. Then corresponding to the fourth one, 17.75. Then the last one is 17.14. Now I can plot either a dotted line. This gives the ZAV line. This is the compaction curve. Now, based on this compaction curve, wherever you get it, may be the data point or it may be some other point. Okay, you get here OMC and write out the. This is your gamma D maximum. Now, on the graph, you have to write what is OMC, what is gamma D maximum. Now, as per my calculations and plotting, I got a OMC of 15.5%, 15.5%, and gamma D maximum works out to be 17.41 kilonewton per meter. Students, this is how we are going to. Now they may ask you to plot 80% saturation line. Therefore, they may ask you at 80% saturation line. Then what you need to do in the calculation, when you got your density, unit weight is equal to GS by 1 plus WGS by SR into gamma W. Now here, in the first case, to get this ZAV line, I have substituted it as 1 or 100%. Now in this case, okay, you substitute as 0.8 and similarly have a tabular column and correspond to each water content, you using 80% degree of saturation you can get. Then you will get one more line like this. This may be 80% saturation line. You may have 70% saturation line or 90%, depending upon whatever they ask in the numerical, you can solve that. Then also they may ask you to find out what is the degree of saturation, what is your SR at OMC. Now we can find out what is your gamma D maximum here. Now using this gamma D maximum is equal to 17.41 is equal to GS into gamma W by 1 plus W into GS by SR. Now this water content, what you are going to substitute? You are going to substitute to OMC water content, this you know, this you know, this you know. This is the question mark. You can find out what is your degree of saturation at OMC. Students, this is about compaction. To summarize, you have discussed about the various, what is done by the definition of compaction. You have seen what are the factors affecting compaction. You have seen different types of rollers, the field compaction control, what are the properties. We have looked into all the background of alcohol compaction and related to the field, and also we have seen a numerical example. If you got any doubts, you can ask me. I will be sending you the assignment, and please work out the assignment on time and submit it.